This is UNLV Arts Worldwide, and this is our spotlight on our jazz and commercial music program. And this is our great dean, Dean Nancy Usher. Hi, Nancy.
Louis, I'm so happy to be with you today because this is one of, the first probably spotlight we're doing on an actual program. And because a lot of the topics we've had for our episodes have sort of cut across different disciplines, and they've been kind of conceptual in nature. And it is so delightful to hear the story about the evolution of the UNLV Jazz and Commercial Music program in our School of Music, which is, of course, in our College of Fine Arts. And so I'm so pleased that we did this. And you and I have enjoyed the interviews with the luminaries, right? Who our faculty are both, amazing performers, and they're dedicated teachers, and they're stretching the abilities of our students. And then we have an interview with a couple of really stellar students and alumni as well. Louis, did you enjoy this episode as well?
Nancy, it's been like a little bit of a walk down memory lane to hear all of the names of the past students who have gone out and done amazing things. And it's so nice for our series to take this moment to focus a little deeper on a specific program and to hear its history and to also see the innovative things this program is doing with its students. So it's wonderful.
Louis, I can't wait to share this wonderful episode with our audience. Enjoy, everyone. Hello, everyone. We are thrilled to be here with our two wonderful guests today. David Loeb is director of the UNLV School of Music Jazz and Commercial Music program. And we're here also, again, with John Katsalamidis, who is a wonderful arts journalist for the Review Journal in town, and a really discerning consumer and writer about some of the most important programs, arts and entertainment programs in Las Vegas. So welcome to both of you. And we have this award-winning jazz and commercial music program at UNLV. It is one of the best in the world. How did we get there, David Loeb?
Thank you, Dean Usher. Nancy, I can't tell you how wonderful it is to be here, and thank you. We're honored that you have chosen to explore and interview us. So how did we get here? Well, it's a long journey, and I don't know how much time we have, but it started a long time ago. It started in the 70s with a gentleman by the name of Frank Gagliardi that came from Denver, University of Denver. He was hired, he was percussionist at the Sands Hotel. And he played for many people, Frank Sinatra. He's on the recording of What a Wonderful World with Louis Armstrong. He was hired by Ken Hanlon at the time to start the jazz program here at UNLV. Now, it wasn't a program, it was a jazz ensemble. And at that time, the entire Las Vegas Strip was populated with orchestras in every casino, full-time, with a full string section. And you would have been one of the premier players if you were there. And it was, anyway, 25-piece orchestras in pretty much every casino. Playing for Frank Sinatra one day, Sammy Davis the next, Tony Bennett. And it was the end of the heyday of the casinos prior to the musician strike, when there weren't orchestras hired full-time in the casinos anymore. But at that time, Frank came in and he started the jazz program, and he worked with Wayne Newton, who made it possible for UNLV students, and they were clamoring to come to UNLV to have an opportunity to have this chance to play in the showroom orchestras. Well, Wayne Newton and I think Howard Hughes's lawyer set it up so that the student musicians that were Frank's top players, could sit in and play for one of those shows, and the musicians got paid union scale, and that was all subsidized at that time. And they also subsidized some of the trips that they had taken. So that UNLV Jazz Ensemble was worldwide, was known worldwide during that time period for their many trips and competing against some of the top names like University of North Texas and getting a lot of acclaim. And then Frank Gagliardi stepped down in the late 80s, early 90s, and a gentleman named Rocky Winslow, who had graduated North Texas University, UNT, came in and took over the program. But at that time, the showroom orchestras were discontinued. There was a musician strike and some things changed on the complexion of the entertainment situation. So there were no longer those full-time jobs in the showrooms for those musicians. So the program changed, and the ability to recruit students from around the world was not at the same level as it had been prior with Frank. So then Rocky took over the program. He left for another university. But at that time, Drew Carey was a friend of his and actually did help and support the program financially and took them on certain trips and so forth. But he left, and then a friend of his named Stefan Carlson, who was just a genius jazz pianist, took over. And Stefan ran the program for several years. And then he took a job when the University of North Texas piano position opened. He left and went back to Denton, Texas, and took over the program there. So then at that point, they needed someone here. And that was, I think, 2002. My good friend Tom Warrington, one of the greatest unsung bassists in the world, was a very good friend of mine, and we were in LA, and I was actually playing a church gig. He came to that and he said, would you consider applying for this job? Stefan's leaving. And so I did, and there were many applications. I ended up interviewing and getting the job, and I'm still living in LA. And since it became the director of the program, I thought I needed to be in Las Vegas. So I moved to Vegas. My wife and I moved over to Vegas, and this was 2000. For the first year, I commuted back and forth, I made Southwest Airlines happy and got good deals. And so I flew back and forth, and then that got old really fast. And so I moved over here in 2003. But the first year I commuted, Tom and his good friend Bruce Paulson, who was also we hired on the faculty, who was lead trombone in Johnny Carson's incredible band that we're probably familiar with. And he taught, so that it was the three of us running the jazz program from 2002. But at this point, and I forgot to mention that Rocky Winslow was the one that set up the actual degree program. When Frank Gagliardi was here, it was a jazz ensemble, but there was no jazz major at that point. And of course, that's a whole legacy that started with North Texas, and then Berkeley, the famous school, started that program a long time ago. But anyway, so the program was instituted in the 90s, the degree program, and Rocky had also set up the master's program. So I came over and took that over in 2002 as director, moved here in 2003, and started to build the program back the best I could using any resources from your help. But before you were here, Dean Cope was very supportive, the best he could be, and outside donors and so forth. At any rate, we started to record. And a friend of mine said, why don't you try to enter this downbeat competition? This was in 2010. And I thought, well, we're very good, but, we're competing against Berkeley. And he said, just try it. Well, we tried it, and we got outstanding performance the first time we tried it with our big band.
Wow.
So from then on, I was hooked, because our students now are getting international recognition. So cut to now, that was 2010, we've won 24 international downbeat music student music awards, and they are considered among the highest recognitions in jazz worldwide.
I wanted to say that when I first came here 4 years ago, it was very clear to me that John here really seriously enjoyed seeing the growth of the program and truly believed in it. John, do you want to talk about how you've gotten to know the program and how you've watched it over the years and what your perspectives are?
Yeah, it's great to see you guys again, you, Dave, and Dean Usher. It's a good way to catch up on these programs, and I'm honored to be a part of it, as always, with anything that goes on in the jazz studies program. When did I think I got to really be aware of the jazz studies program at UNLV. Part of it was through the Hall of Fame, events, musicians that I met there who had been performing there. They had a musician set aside to play as we walked in the reception and all that. But it was really the professionals that came out of the program that when I started, understanding that there were so many. Dave mentioned, people like Nathan Tanouye, for example, came out of UNLV. I started really paying attention to the pipeline that the program had created between the university and working professionals in Las Vegas, on and off the Strip. I think it was that way. It was people like Santa Fe and the Fat City Horns and Lon Bronson's All-Star Band and David Perico, who was instructed there. And that's really a tangible consequence. That's an outcome of what they do at UNLV. For people who don't maybe appreciate something like downbeat, and you have to explain that to them, they do get Lady Gaga. They know what that is. And when you see a series of a collection of former UNLV musicians that came out of the school and current instructors and people like Nathan, you start to understand what this means, that this is world class at the collegiate level and at the working professional level. And that's how I got to understand it. And I've always tried to establish the bridge between the university, where a lot of people who visit Las Vegas maybe don't maybe see shows there. They maybe not aren't exposed to the performers enough, but I try to make them aware of what that means to our working entertainment industry in the city and elsewhere. So that's really the kind of the short version of how it has happened. I really deeply understand how important it is. And, you mentioned Patrick Hogan, who I've actually seen recently over at the Vegas Room, the little supper club, and he's holding a show himself, singing and playing his own originals. And when I'm there, I make sure that people understand that he comes from UNLV, from the Jazz Studies program. He's there at Mayfair Supper Club, also. One week, I think I saw Patrick 4 times in different shows. He was with Bob Anderson. He was at Nomad Bar. He was at, I think he had just opened at the Mayfair. And, so that I think it's that way. And Dave himself, his story, Dave is, I think it's up to me in part to remind people of the impact that Dave Loeb has made as an artist in entertainment media outside UNLV and what that means. People, like the Family Guy and all the headliners that he's performed with over the years. It just goes on being in the Hollywood Bowl Orchestra. And when people understand that is the scale of talent we're talking about, it automatically draws attention back to the university. And I feel that's my role in this, is to make sure that we keep pulling people back into UNLV, because this doesn't happen accidentally.
Thank you so much. We are so proud of David Loeb. There's no question. We're very, very fortunate. And I know Louis has some interesting perspectives to share as well, as someone who's been here for a quarter of a century or so. Sorry, that sounds very serious. But you've seen the evolution too, Louis, with this.
Nancy, it's amazing. And Dave doesn't know this, but when I first came to UNLV, I was on the curriculum committee for the university for new programs. And the Jazz Studies program was one of the first things that I could speak to the committee about the importance of the innovation of this program. And at the time, there weren't many jazz programs in the country. And so UNLV was on the forefront. And as I look at the students now, they get so many skills that they're kind of amazing in that. I always say, in a nice way, they remind me of dancers, that they can cross boundaries into arranging and composing, and they do so many things. So, Dave, how have you seen the students blossom with all of those skills?
Oh, it's incredible. And John, thank you so much. Your support over the years has just been amazing. I met John the first time outside of Jerry Lewis's, outside of his dressing room when I was playing for the telethon, and we briefly talked, and I started selling him on the program then, and we talked about Jennifer Vaughn, and it started. But As far as the students are concerned, Louis, it's just mind-boggling. It's incredible the progress they make. But again, some of our, we have Uli Geisendorfer teaching, who runs the dispensary. He's a world-class pianist, and he's taken our Latin Jazz Ensemble to the highest heights. They've gotten 4 downbeat awards and won many, many times. And he does it basically with original arrangements and compositions, and his expertise, having played with and interacted with Chucho Valdez and other people. We have Adam Schroeder on our faculty, who is, I think he's 8 or 9 downbeat readers polls. He's a world-class artist in his own right. I mean, always top 10 in the world on baritone saxophone. So he's joined our faculty after Tom Warrington and Bruce both retired to New Zealand. But it's not just that these are all world-class artists, and like John said, I could list 200, who have come out of this program. Kenny Rampton, who we've been doing a wonderful collaboration every year, the Essentially Ellington Festival. He's in the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra, and he's come back and given back to our community in huge ways. Dennis McCrell, the great drummer who was here and played with Count Basie, and directed the Count Basie band. And one of the stories I had with the students, Louis, we were doing a tribute to Marlena Shaw, the great jazz singer who's local, who sang all the way along with the jazz ensemble, always donated her time when we had our Joe Williams scholarship concerts to perform along with the great Clint Holmes and all the wonderful performers here. So we've always had a community outreach also. We've continued that through the last 19 years. This is my 19th year. But so these students have this opportunity to interact with these world-class professionals, but who also really care about them and really dig in deep to get inside the students, inside their psyche, inside their soul, to find out what direction is best for them and where they're going to go. Dave Perico was a student and went on, and I remember getting him into Aaron Copland. Now he's a jazz artist and trumpet, anybody that knows him in town. But when I was teaching him composition, let's try this out. And now he's incorporated that into his string writing with his pop strings and so forth. Paul Schaefer comes in regularly and plays with him. So, I mean, we could go on and on with the list of credits, but it's really the students' fascination and their, insatiable, curiosity to explore this music and the depth of it, it's really our American music, jazz is. But we changed the degree to jazz and commercial music just a couple of years ago in order to reflect all of our eclectic backgrounds from, like you say, Lady Gaga, with most of our faculty and some of the students playing, or playing over here with, all the other groups. Tony Bennett with Count Basie's orchestra. Dennis McCrell was a graduate from UNLV, and then he performed there. So they came to do in the middle of winter, Marlena Shaw came in, and it was the Count Basie Orchestra featuring Marlena. Well, 4 or 5 of the Count Basie band were snowed in New York. They couldn't get here. Dennis McCrell, world-class jazz drummer and composer, arranger, and a gentleman, comes into my office, and we are frantically trying to Xerox Count Basie music because one of those performers in the band in New York who couldn't get here had the music. He was transporting the music, and this is right before we had the PDFs and you could print them out and so forth and put them up on the iPads. So we're trying to print out music, and he says, I need a couple of players. And he called one of our very good friends, Kurt Miller, who's been kind of a through line through this whole thing. In the late 70s, I used to come and I was conducting for Ben Vereen. I was at the Riviera Hotel, and we became friends back then, not knowing that I would be here 20 years later, or 25 years later. And we're still good friends. He was a big part of the jazz program, and he is actually he's doing a through line where we're documenting what happened before and what's happening now. So we're trying to put it all together. But so the Count Basie band is playing, and I said to Dennis McCrell, who was on the Joe Williams advisory board when we were receiving those scholarships from the Joe Williams Foundation, they chose UNLV to honor in that for that financial assistance. Well, I said, put in those 4 students that you took to lunch last year. He said, really? And it was this Julian Tanaka. It was Nate Kimball on trombone. It was Joel Gibson on trumpet. Actually, it was those 3 students. And the very first song featured alto sax. Julian Tanaka came out in front and just brought the house down. Had a half an hour talk-over rehearsal, and Dennis McCrell made a talk to the audience and said, this is the results of these scholarships and these students. So those kind of things just make us all so proud. And, we're at the point where we love, I love conducting the Sinatra show, the Win and Showstoppers and Lady Gaga and all those things. But I have to say, all of us in our faculty, I have to say we're pretty much unified. When our students accomplish these wonderful, accolades, we are more thrilled than when we perform ourselves. Now that may be an overstatement, but it's definitely
true mentor. A true mentor.
And Lewis, I've talked to Lewis a little bit. I've worked with so many dancers, coming out of working with Ben Vereen over the years. Kelsey Kirkland on the LA Law Show, and almost every style imaginable. And I love that interaction with the with movement and rhythm and melody and how it interacts and with all the arts, But we embrace that with our students, and that's why they do so well, because it's a feeling. It's a, it's if you're not tapping your feet, we're not swinging.
Oh, that remember. I wanted to mention that when Patrick Hogan came here, of course, we were all extremely excited to see such a great talent come to be educated here. Yes. And he's among many talented students.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I'm mentioning him in particular because I remember you told me that he wanted to start singing and he wanted to try it out. And you said, sure. So you brought him up on the stage. He tried things out. He loved it. It was very clear that's where he wanted to be. And this is to me a great example about, you said, follow the students' interests and give them these opportunities to try things out, to succeed, to find out, how to evolve. And so to hear John's experience, of hearing and seeing Patrick several nights a week all around Las Vegas, to hear your experience enabling this fine young man to develop this skill in concert or in an integrated way with his pianistic skills, it says to me, wow, this is the right university for him. And he knows it. I know that he does. And he tries things out. He's enjoying himself. He's learning, he's stretching himself. And then he gets to go out to the Strip and various other places in Las Vegas and try things out. I've been saying wow several times during this interview, and I'll say another wow for that, because that's really the essence of education, I think. What do you think?
And Nancy, there's one other student, there's hundreds of students, but Nancy, our connection with the classical in Eastman. Well, there's a student that came here also years ago, another pianist, Otto Ealing. He came from the LA area. Mm-hmm. And I heard him at the Reno Jazz Festival. Our jazz piano player at the time, Brian Triola, had gone off with a rock group. And I was looking for another pianist trying to recruit. And I went in to hear this group in the Reno Festival from Hamilton High School. And he was just phenomenal. His teacher said, you're going to go to UNLV. You study with it. You're going there because of the crossover. I was playing in the Hollywood Bowl at the time when we would play for, Placido Domingo, or I guess maybe somebody else, Josh Bell. And the next day it's, Quincy Jones. Mm-hmm. And I knew this student had the potential. So he came to UNLV and, incredible jazz student, and he started working. We said, let's do classical also. You have this legacy. So he would study with Mikola Suk, and so he's doing jazz lessons and classical lessons. Well, I was conducting the Long Beach Symphony for Ben Vereen, and I brought Otto in. He was 21 years old to play the third movement of Rachmaninoff's Second Piano Concerto. He received a standing ovation, this is a professional performance. 5,000 people, instant standing ovation. And then afterwards, he played a jazz song, I Love You, because I said, next week is Valentine's Day, and we've had Romeo and Juliet, we have West Side Story, that's a tragedy, Romeo and Juliet, and we've had Full Moon and Empty Arms, that's the Rachmaninoff. I said, we need a love song. I love you, Otto. And he says, I love you, Mr. Loeb. I said, no, play the song. And I brought out the bass player and the drummer, and he played an incredible jazz version right after playing, the third movement of the Rachmaninoff. And then he also won the concerto competition at UNLV, and he was a jazz major. So we love those interactions across the disciplines and the genres. We embrace it. That's what all of our faculty, that's what we have done our whole lives. So that's why we changed the degree to jazz and commercial music, because we're now embracing film scoring and all the other aspects. Pop, Lon Bronson was a member, came to school here and then ran our jazz funk ensemble, which will tie in directly with Santa Fe and the Fat City Horns that we want to start. Also, Nancy, maybe this year we can bring them in so they can mentor our students and all those styles. So,
so wonderful. Wow.
All the genres.
Love that idea so much.
I have a question for John. Just as someone who chronicles music in this town, how do you see Las Vegas factoring into the chemistry of this program?
I think it's a natural. I think it's an inescapable connection. Las Vegas is always going to be synonymous with live entertainment. Even when we get out of this at the end of this particular period of time, it's always going to be known for live entertainment, no matter what form it takes. You mentioned Otto. He was in Human Nature's band.
Yes.
For a long time, and he just recorded a single with Noibel Gorgoy, the great Cuban singer. Yeah. I saw them talking about it yesterday on her Instagram Live. So he's keeping busy. Otto happens to be the last Liberace scholarship winner ever, too. Yeah, that's another distinction he has. Speaking of that, the connection to Las Vegas is I think what UNLV, what the program can do is it keeps alive in a very contemporary way the tradition of live music in Las Vegas. And I do go back to some of the artists who, when you look at Lon Bronson, who was at the Riviera for years and part of and his whole history of the live midnight show that was at the lounge at Riviera. In like 1990, he was brought in by Steve Sharippa, and the fact that he's connected to UNLV in that way. I love the connection between UNLV and Santa Fe, because Santa Fe, has had their Monday night performances at the Cope Room at Bootlegger Bistro, a very Las Vegas event. Jerry Lopez, their first gig as a band was at the Mint Hotel, and their first hotel gig, they played at Cleopatra's Barge at Caesar's Palace. They're still on stage now, and you can bring current students in from the program and introduce them to the next phase of Las Vegas entertainment consumers in a real-time way. It's a multi-dimensional experience. I've told both you guys offline, you and Dean Usher, that I think that there's a way that we can promote the program and all of its achievements through that Santa Fe experience that would help Santa Fe. Jerry Lopez is really into this. And it would also benefit the program on an ongoing basis and remind people that, this is the next Santa Fe performers are probably coming from this area, the next generation. So it's important to keep it going that way, and to take the program out of its normal context on occasion, get it into the community. But you mentioned Uli Giesendorfer. Yeah. What a wicked talent. I mean, that trio that he puts together at the dispensary is just mind-blowing, and it touches so many people. And that's where Brian Newman, Lady Gaga's band leader, the first time I had understood and heard that he had been anywhere was joining that band at the dispensary in town. And that's how he helped him get connected to the whole community. Wow. And that led to a lot of cool stuff too. So, it's at the epicenter, UNLV. It's the dot on the map in the middle of all this live entertainment.
The interconnectivity is really exciting to think about, and I love the ideas that you both talked about today. Of course, the Santa Fe group got the Dean's Medal, every single one of them. Last year, we weren't able to have Hall of Fame, due to the pandemic, and we're looking forward to also 2021. But it is exciting to hear about the journeys, the multifaceted journeys of our work here at UNLV and the evolution of live entertainment in Las Vegas and how they come together. And you've both done a great job in discussing it. Is there anything that we didn't cover that, I'm sure you'll both be back again, but for now, is there anything we didn't cover that you'd like to talk about?
Well, I just forgot to mention that our, last but not least, our Contemporary Jazz Ensemble, which is directed by Julian Tanaka this year, I have the plaque sitting over here. I had downbeat mailing it. they won in the graduate college. That's the top award in Downbeat magazine. They won the top group in the blues, pop, rock category in Downbeat. So that's another example of the justification for us modifying our degree to include commercial music, because a couple of the original songs by the students I listened to, and I thought, and one of them was actually an arrangement of a composer from Nigeria with a very eclectic African beat. And I thought, these have a groove to them. Let me just try the blues rock, when I enter these awards. You don't know what's going to happen, because you put a number on the recording and it goes off to the judges, and they're listening. They don't know what school, they don't know what, they just judge what they feel is the best. So it's called a blind audition. So they won, and that's competing against, I'm sorry, but that was against Berkeley, University of North Texas, and University of Miami. And these are all friends of mine, but I'm so proud of them. And when we say winning, we feel like we need the cheerleaders giving a cheer for, a certain flat 9 or something. But it is a nice recognition, and it is completely fair, because there's no pretense or anything. The judges are only basing it on what they hear.
Mm-hmm. I think there's no doubt there are unique and really special qualities about this program of UNLV Jazz and Commercial Music. We're so pleased today to have a spotlight on this award-winning, very worthy and really exciting program. Thank you so much to both of you for being our guests today.
Thank you so much.
Nancy.
Thanks,
John,
Nancy.
Louis.
Always a pleasure, you guys. Always a pleasure.
Hi there, my name is Molly Redfield. I am the Leadership Fellow to Dean Nancy Usher, and I'm a graduate teaching and research assistant to the School of Music. And here today, I am extremely lucky to be with two of my closest friends who are also well-established musicians and just amazing people. I just can't emphasize this enough. First, I have Patrick Hogan here, who is one of the pianists at the Mayfair Supper Club, and he is a multi-Downbeat award-winning composer and pianist, and I think you got one in singing too, right, Patrick?
Yeah, I got like outstanding performance or something like that.
Yeah. So, and I'm here with the great Jorge Machain, who is another multi-Downbeat award-winning composer, trumpet player. He played with Grammy award-winning Ricky Martin. His composition by The Bullet just got published by Hal Leonard and Boosey and Hawkes, and it also is the winner of the American Prize Award. And it is just phenomenal to be with both of these recent grads. Jorge just graduated with his master's in music and jazz studies, and Hogan just graduated with his undergraduate, his bachelor's degree in music and jazz composition as well, right, Patrick?
Yeah, I think it's like jazz and commercial music with a focus in composition. Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, so super, super fun to be here. And what we're talking about today is our performance at the 2019 Jazz Education Network, which was this huge conference put on in Reno. It was their 10th annual one. And we were one of the invited performers, our quartet. There's one more of us. His name's Angelo Stokes. He couldn't be here with us today, but we were a solid 4. And we were invited to perform at Gen based off of recordings that were sent in previously. And what Gen is it's basically an established network of jazz educators who come together and they share their teaching styles and techniques. At this conference specifically, there's a festival for high school students. There are workshops, and there's also research presentations throughout I think it was 4 days at the time we went. And so It's an amazing experience. And so today we're here to share about what it was like to be there. So I think I'll throw it probably first to Jorge. Talk about, I don't know, what it was like.
Well, I thought it was it was a pretty cool experience, definitely enriching as well. Like Molly said, we definitely got to play in one of the stages. I forgot what the name of the stage is called. But I was really surprised. I was really surprised by the turnout of people that showed up to just check us out that day. It's obviously incredible playing with you guys all the time. I mean, you can't get better than that, I think. Aside from the performance, I got to meet a lot of cool people. There was a lot of faculty from UNLV there as well. I know Dave went. I got to meet, I think it's Paul Campos, right? The guy who directs Cantos, the guy who directs the Monterey Jazz, is it high school group? It's like the all-star group or whatever.
Oh, Next Generation, Monterey Jazz.
Yeah. Patrick played in it.
I was part of that.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't in the Next Generation Orchestra, but I was in the county band with Paul. I've known him for a long time. Wonderful cat.
So just right there is just like like the plethora of educators that you can meet to network and to have a professional relationship and maybe catch up with him at some other time. I think overall, it was also really interesting to just see a lot of younger people there who were really good. Like they were killing. I'm like, wow, that's really good. So yeah, I mean, super enriching. It was awesome.
Yeah, well, I think even one of the bassists that I met there was Katie Thoreau, who from Connection, I'm actually studying with her this summer through this distance time. How cool is that?
That's awesome.
All from that relationship that I made from just sitting down with her, which happened just because there wasn't anything else to do in the hotel. So, a cup of coffee went a long way.
Katie's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, she's super cool. And then, Patrick, what do you think was like the biggest takeaway from that performance for you?
From the performance, I like performances at festivals and conferences like that because whenever it's based around education, you're always going to have a large contingent of younger, Jorge mentioned a lot of young people being there, but they're young people who are there and they're ready to absorb. They're enthusiastic, those are going to be some of your most enthusiastic audiences. And they were, I remember them being particularly energetic about us. It was kind of weird when we were playing because we didn't play in an actual room. They had us kind of like in an alcove in the hallway. In the conference center. Yeah, every big hotel like that has like a conference center with all the ballrooms, and you were in a hallway like off to the side. But it didn't make any difference because there were so many people there who were so loving and vociferously supportive of us. That's actually the salient thing that I remember from it. Usually with gigs at this point, like I down the line, I remember like little bits and pieces and snatches of things, and the enthusiasm was what I remembered from that one.
Yeah. Well, I think for us specifically, it was just really nice to play for a crowd that knew about jazz too. It's a hit crowd. Yeah. Yeah, and we face that when we travel with Monterey Jazz Festival, when we go play there. It's the same vibe, and
there's nothing more awkward than being in front of a crowd that are listening to jazz, and you're like your fellow peers they're just playing the most killing solo ever, and then everyone just stays quiet, and you're like, come on. But at these conventions, like Jen, who is about jazz, like they know the etiquette, they know the vibe. It was really great to interact with all these people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think in general, it was an amazing thing for our college to be a part of, because there weren't that many colleges there. And we were such a small little entity out of UNLV, I think between the four of us, we really exemplify all the different areas. I mean, just from your announcements, I mean, each of you not just do your one thing, and we didn't play. Did we even play a standard in that set that wasn't arranged by us or composed by us?
No, I think everything we did.
Yeah.
We played.
I think the only standard we did we do Rhapsody?
Yeah, I think we did that one, but that
was heavily rearranged. Yeah.
And then we played Raise Kicks, and then your Patrick, what was it tune? Something Moon?
We did a couple of mine. I think we did Life and Times, and we did the other one, Super Moon. Yeah, it's been a while, but
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, and on top of it, shortly after Jen, we actually went into the recording studio a few times and did just live takes. Because I remember we tried doing those without being in booths.
Right.
And we also went into booths too to get kind of the refined takes, and both of those became highly reviewed in Jazz Times about this quartet and It's kind of silly to say it, but they said that we have great chemistry, apparently, guys, and
Nice.
we dig. So I think that's really awesome to hear about our group, and they only commented on the tunes once again that we wrote or that we arranged, and I think it's just showing off all the different levels that we have, and that's, I think, something that UNLV really cultivates from us, that jazz and commercial division.
Yeah, it definitely pushes students, to have their own voice and to be original, and to take something like an arrangement and expanding to their own thing, and they really want to promote that. In fact, I think that if the jazz band could only play student compositions for concerts and festivals, they would.
Yeah.
Because that's how much love and support there is in that community.
We're so excited in this episode to be celebrating our wonderful jazz and commercial music program in the School of Music at UNLV. And we couldn't be more proud today to have two of the wonderful professors and mentors, also they're great performers in their own right, Adam Schroeder and Nathan Tanouye, here with Louis and me as we celebrate this program and find out more about it. What are the hopes and dreams? Each of you is a consummate, beautiful performer. You have gigs, you have engagements. Sometimes you're writing music for the stars, arranging. You teach constantly. You're a mentor to individual students. And I think, what a lucky experience it is for our students to see actual wonderful people such as yourselves who have these rich careers, and you do many things at one time and you make it work, you juggle. It can't be easy, but what's easy in life anyway? That's not what we're not here for easy, right? And I think they will have those careers too, and some of them, as I understand it, when I go to the jazz and commercial music program concerts, I know that some of our students are already getting opportunities, receiving opportunities through both of you and others, other mentors in the program, to go out and do gigs already, to go to Hollywood and do this or that. I know that we have examples of students who are doing fabulous arranging, and they're getting recognition through various ensemble competitions and things like that. So how does it feel? Does it feel wonderful and also exhausting, I'm sure, to be doing all these different things and, having this, the range of what you do is broad, and then your students can see that it's possible. How does that feel to you, to be inculcating those ideas about careers into your students' psyches?
So for me, my growing up in this industry, this idiom, was just about mentorship. I mean, my mentors shared everything from me, and the classroom, although we met in a room at times, the classroom was everywhere. It was the hallway, it was the car on the way to the job, it was going to get a cup of coffee or paying for somebody's dinner because maybe you couldn't afford the lesson price, or taking a walk with a professor or a teacher when they didn't know what else to do in the classroom setting. And so that classroom, like I said earlier, is everywhere. And yes, it might be on paper, it might actually look exhausting. And yes, we all get tired, but the beautiful thing about the arts in general, and for us specifically for music, as soon as music starts, I mean, and you can see this in a young person, I mean, just, newborns even, as soon as music starts, there's an infectious energy that just comes through it. And that energy is what keeps us all going. It happens in all of the facets, all of the elements that we deal with. So to bring that to the students and have them join us at times in these occasions, I think spurs them on to try harder, because they then see that, number one, they are completely capable of doing this. And we've shown them everything outside the box that they may have to think about. And then as we reflect back with each other, they may inform us of something that we haven't thought about. So that it's just always this interplay. And when I teach in my applied studio, I always say that we're all students of the music at all times. So yes, one of us has achieved a title, but we're going to leave that outside the door, because when we enter into the music realm, we're just all students. And so for me, there's a lot of equality, and you know, we definitely try and also bring culture into the conversation everywhere we can go to. So I'd love to hear Nathan's take on this, because we've never actually discussed this between the two of us either. So.
I don't know, you know, it's a big question. I mean, I've liked, you know, I've always loved wearing a lot of different hats ever since I was young, and like, you know, as soon as I could play the trombone, I was always playing trombone. I just always was practicing all the time, you know, through high school and college, and then I started learning how to write in college at UNLV. Actually, I started learning how to write music, and that kind of perpetuated on and everything. And it's so nice now to be able to share that with students, and even get them involved sometimes. I've had students involved with writing projects. Like I got called for this huge gig in New Orleans, writing music for a big show and everything, like for a big orchestra and everything. And like 20 or 30 pieces of music, you know, I had to like get done. And so I just actually, you know, got some students on board with it, past graduates, you know, and I paid them like, you know, like I would assistants and everything. And it was such a great experience for them. You know, they had to work under the gun and really learn like that, you know, and it was so great, you know, it was so nice to involve them. But, you know, yeah, I don't know if I answered your question.
Well, it sounds very fluid. You know, it sounds like it's very natural for both of you to do many things. They all flow together, and they're who you are, and they're who our students are. So it sounds like, you know, it's invigorating for you, and it's not, and it just feels right. That's the impression I have from what you said. Absolutely.
Yep. It's just natural to want to give back. You know, once you've kind of got your own footing as a professional, it's like you want to share what you know and share new opportunities with your students. It's fun.
That's sort of the irony of, you know, the current situation there that we're all in presently, is that a portion of what we have done for, you know, our entire career has now been taken from the plate and put as a side dish, and you can't touch that side dish until someone else says it's safe to actually touch that side dish. But because of that, we've actually been able to deal with and learn ourselves and bring a new experience to our student body that is a reflection of, again, just the ever-changing music industry that we work in, the ever-changing arts environment. And so that to me is a beautiful thing that our students and we as the professors get to just share communally in this, you know, ongoing growth. So.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing. So go ahead, sorry.
An ongoing question that we've had in this series, especially during the pandemic, is what have people learned, and, you know, what new challenges? So what have students learned playing music virtually on these Zooms and these new recordings? What's happened?
Well, I guess I can take that one. So a lot of us have gone to recording music, like, because a lot of us have home setups here. I have a microphone here that's hooked up to my computer, and I can record solo things, or even just parts to ensemble music. I've had a couple of recent graduates that have written big band charts, you know, big band music, right? And they ask everybody, hey, can you play on this tune? And then they send you a click track, and they, you know, say, okay, go, you know, and here's the rhythm section they've already recorded, and now you lay your part down. And so, you know, you have like 17 people laying down their individual parts, and in the end you have a big band, you know. And this is, you know, it's quite amazing, the technology that we have now. We can actually do some things. And I think this has been a very good learning experience for everybody, because like when you're playing a gig live, you're playing some musical engagement live, it's in the moment and it's gone like that, you know. It's like good, bad, or ugly, it's you know, it's done, you know. But when you're at home recording, you scrutinize every single note that you're playing, because it's going to a recording. So, it better be in tune and it better be in time. It got to sound good. So I think that this is actually, it's going to be good in a way for students to really be able to self-evaluate better. They're gonna really put themselves under their microscopes more. We are going to be trying to do this too with our jazz program while we're in this sort of COVID world. I think, it could work out for us. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I always think about the things that, Nathan and I just sort of take for granted, which is those unspoken elements that you really cannot teach. And I think in this situation, sort of like trying to teach culture, you can't really teach it unless you immerse yourself in it, or you try and put yourself into that situation. And for me during this whole thing, and I actually talked to Nathan about how he did his Zoom lessons at first while he was gone for a little while. He said that, his students actually had really sort of risen to the occasion. And the more I thought about the students rising to the occasion was that unspoken element of they're taking responsibility upon themselves because they don't actually have the teacher nitpicking at them or essentially addressing something in person. And they had more perseverance to themselves also. They really did want to achieve, so that when they showed up again to this new format of learning, that they could show that they had actually done some work. And along with that came what we actually just completely take for granted, which is you have to have ownership of the music. You have to have ownership of your artistic integrity. You have to actually put heart and soul into it at all times. And if you don't, it's completely evident to those who can hear it. And I mean, we've all heard a bad rendition of something out there that just doesn't have that humanistic quality, which is so hard to define. But for me, that ownership of the music, I'm seeing very prevalent in my student body right now. And I think we can all say that about the entire jazz division. I mean, we just sat through 74 auditions, and so many of the students are just, in a different headspace, musically speaking, than they were 5 months ago. And it's a beautiful thing to hear. I mean, they've really, again, taken responsibility and ownership, and they've persevered. So
I think it's very exciting. It's just confirmation that we're doing some good things at the school, and I mean, a lot of good things. Our students are really top notch. They really work hard. They're really cutting edge with their compositions, their arrangements, their playing. It's really, it's just confirmation that we're doing things right, or that we've, I think, in my opinion. What do you say, Adam?
I mean, I agree wholeheartedly with everything you've said. One other nice thing that is sort of not as big award-winning as all the things that Dean Usher has mentioned, though, is the chance to perform at all the graduation ceremonies, where not just our students get to hear us from the whole university, but the entire community gets to hear us, and to feel that energy when those kids that have done all this performance and all the awards, they're just having a ball, and everybody in that auditorium or Coliseum, however you want to talk about the Thomas and Mack, is just on their feet until, we are told to take our seats. And I think that's just one of the biggest highlights for me throughout the year too. So.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I've been so impressed with your students, especially some of the grad students. I've sat on some graduate orals, and I'm always impressed how they can arrange. They can do so many, they can multitask in so many different ways. I mean, in some ways, it always reminds me of dancers who can choreograph and can dance. And what's it like, and what skills are you really trying to instill in your students in the program?
Go ahead, Nathan.
Yeah, there's so many. I mean, it's like what you said. I mean, we're trying to create really round musicians in jazz, like where they can go into any situation and really succeed, whether it's writing music or playing music, or you're playing in different situations too. If you're playing Broadway, that's maybe something in itself, and then you're going to go and play a jazz gig, and you need to sound like a jazz player and be able to improvise and do all of that. And maybe even get to play in a symphony or something like this, where you're having to play more, wear a different hat, But we want them to really go out into the world knowing what they're doing. We want them to sound like experts. We want them to be able to exist in a lot of different situations. succeed.
Our change in degree name or change in our degree path to jazz and commercial music just reflected what the faculty has been teaching and the students have been doing for decades now. Jazz is just this big umbrella title, basically. And I think, like Nathan suggested and stated so eloquently, that our students have the ability to go out and do so many different fundamental things in the musical genre. But it's not just having the skill set to play music. They have the wherewithal to provide the music for the performers, or to actually write a grant so that they can better serve maybe an underserved community. They have the ability to just do so many other things than take the stage and put a smile on somebody's face or touch their heart in a way. So we try and embody that, just as the professors. We live through the music ourselves, and we try and bring that exact stance right back into our educational settings.
Yeah, we ask a lot of them. I mean, we really do. If you think about it, it's like, you have to, you got to play at this level, and and you have to practice all the time, and you got to know how to write this too, and you got to know how to voice out a G13 chord, and it's really a lot of stuff that we demand of them, and they really do step up, and they, like, time and time again, they have a lot of successful students that come out of the program.
Mm-hmm.
Nancy, what a wonderful episode, and what a wonderful program we have in jazz and commercial music.
Louis, we've been talking a lot in our series about how we're confronting this time of the pandemic, and does it have an aura about it that can lead to innovation for the future in all of our programs, and I think that Dave Loeb was talking about some of the plans they have for the future, and I think their future is very bright. I heard a comment the other day about whether this was a lost year. This is far from a lost year. It's a gained year. It's a special year where people are going to keep learning skills, keep growing, and keep moving forward.
Yeah, I think what's amazing, Nancy, is when you have programs that prepare students in so many ways for innovation, when something as horrible as a pandemic hits, the students they're ready. They're ready to keep working, and they're ready to find meaning and to keep the arts alive. So I'm just so excited to see all the virtual concerts that these students, the compositions, the arranging, just the vast scope of what they're doing. It's amazing.
They keep producing CDs, they keep winning awards,
yeah.
And I know that our audience and all of us will be looking forward to watching them and hearing them for the long future.
Yes. This is UNLV Arts Worldwide. We're reaching from Las Vegas to the world.
Patrick Hogan, piano. Amazing. We have loved playing for you this evening. This has been a special treat for everyone here. I know we've been having a blast at the festival. I hope you all have too. We've enjoyed seeing many of you probably play too. So we're going to, at this time, invite Mr. David Loeb, our Director of Jazz Studies, back up here, conduct the last tune.
One more hand for Nathan Tanouye. We are just so blessed and privileged to be here. We can't believe it. We have one more song for you. We want to keep it, we want to get it moving here because you have Chick Corea and Herbie Hancock, right down the road here. And we want to thank Paul Contos for the Monterey Next Generation Jazz Festival, Rob Clevin for making it happen way in the beginning. And we want to thank our Dean, Nancy Usher, and the Director of the School of Music at UNLV, Sue Mueller, for making this possible for us to participate in this world-class #1 jazz festival. So we're so pleased to be here. Thank you again. Our last chart is actually by a student. Many of our students are incredible arrangers in their own right, and this is no exception. Our tenor saxophonist tonight, and this is his arrangement. His name is Michael Spicer, right here from Nova Scotia. And this is a well-known Cole Porter composition, and I think you're going to know it. Thanks again for coming, and this is Love for Sale, UNLV Jazz Ensemble I. Here we go, featuring Michael Spicer and Angelo Stokes on the drums.
UNLV Jazz Ensemble I. Thank you.